on a cold winter night in 2003. In a house on the outskirts of Chicago, Illinois, a young woman named Jessica, whose name has been changed, visited her boyfriend Michael's house for the first time. They had been dating for a few months, and Jessica was excited to meet his family and explore his living space. Michael's house looked quite old and somewhat gloomy, although the interior was decorated quite warmly. Michael's parents were away, so only the two of them were home. Michael showed Jessica around the rooms, telling her about his childhood memories associated with this house. As Jessica entered the living room, she felt a strange sensation, as if someone was watching her. She looked around but saw no one. Michael laughed and said, "What's wrong, honey? This house is a bit old, so sometimes there are strange noises." Jessica tried to shake off the uneasy feeling and continued chatting with Michael. After dinner, they sat down to watch a movie in the living room. Around 11 p.m., Jessica began to feel sleepy. Michael led her upstairs to the bedroom on the second floor. The room was quite spacious, with a large bed and an antique wardrobe. Michael said, "You rest here. I'll go downstairs to get some more drinks and come back." Jessica nodded and lay down on the bed. She felt a little strange that Michael left her alone in this room, but she thought maybe he just wanted her to be comfortable. As soon as Michael left the room, Jessica suddenly heard a very soft laugh coming from somewhere in the room. It was a high-pitched, cold, and somewhat mocking laugh. Jessica startled and sat up. Looking around, she thought maybe she had misheard. But then the laughter rang out again, this time clearer and closer. It seemed to be coming from the wardrobe. Jessica felt her heart beat faster. She couldn't explain this laughter. Jessica called out softly, "Michael, are you back already?" No one answered. The ghostly laughter continued, sometimes soft, sometimes loud, as if teasing her. Jessica felt utter terror. She didn't know who or what was in the room with her. She tried to call Michael again, but her voice caught in her throat. Suddenly, the wardrobe door slowly opened. Jessica stared in horror inside. Darkness enveloped everything, but she could feel a cold and terrifying presence there. Jessica trembled and backed away from the slightly open wardrobe. She tried to calm herself down, thinking maybe it was just her imagination. But the ghostly laughter continued, as if mocking her fear. Jessica decided she had to call Michael. She reached for her cell phone on the bedside table, but her hands shook so badly that the phone fell to the floor. The small noise made the silence even more eerie and frightening. Jessica bent down to pick up the phone, but she didn't dare look towards the wardrobe anymore. She felt like someone was standing right there, staring at her. After picking up the phone, Jessica quickly called Michael. He answered immediately. Jessica's voice trembled as she said, "Michael, there's something in the room." Michael sounded surprised. "What is it, honey? Are you okay?" Jessica tried to explain what she had heard and felt, but her voice was choked with fear. Michael reassured her, "Don't worry, I'm coming right up." Jessica heard Michael's footsteps running up the stairs. She felt a little safer. While waiting for Michael, Jessica didn't dare take her eyes off the wardrobe. She felt like an invisible pair of eyes was watching her every move. Suddenly, the ghostly laughter stopped. The room became eerily quiet. Jessica felt extreme anxiety. She didn't know what was about to happen. Just then, the bedroom door slowly opened. Michael stood in the doorway, looking worriedly at Jessica. "What's wrong?" he asked. Jessica rushed to hug Michael, tears streaming down her cheeks. She told him about the ghostly laughter and the terrifying feeling she had just experienced. Michael held Jessica tightly and tried to reassure her. He said maybe she was just stressed and imagining things. But Jessica knew that what she had heard and felt was real. Michael led Jessica downstairs to the living room to calm her down. He made her a cup of hot tea and sat beside her. Jessica was still trembling and didn't dare take her eyes off the staircase. When Jessica felt a little better, she decided to go to the bathroom. Michael said he would go with her, but Jessica wanted to go alone to prove to herself that she wasn't scared anymore. Jessica entered the bathroom, turned on the light, and looked in the mirror. She startled when she saw a blurry figure standing right behind her in the mirror. It was the image of a woman with long black hair and a pale white face. Her deep black eyes staring intently at her. Jessica screamed in horror and spun around. But no one was there. She looked back at the mirror, and the terrifying figure had also disappeared. After Jessica told Michael about the figure in the mirror, he no longer thought she was just imagining things. He became serious and more worried. Michael confessed that he had also heard strange noises in the house before, but he had always tried to ignore them. Michael said that this house had been in his family for 3 generations. His grandfather had bought it in the 1940s. Michael didn't know much about the history of the house, but he remembered his grandmother often telling strange stories about it. According to Michael's grandmother, the house used to belong to a wealthy family. But a tragedy occurred. The mother in that family had committed suicide in the bedroom Jessica had just been in. She hanged herself out of grief after the death of her young daughter. Michael's grandmother said that sometimes people still heard wailing and saw the figure of that woman in the house. But Michael had never believed these stories until Jessica recounted what she had experienced. Jessica felt a chill when she heard Michael's story. She had no idea that this house had such a sad history. She thought maybe the spirit of that woman was still lingering in the house and trying to contact them. Michael felt guilty for not telling Jessica about the strange things in his house. He said he was afraid she would think he was crazy. Jessica hugged Michael and said she understood. The two decided to learn more about the history of the house together and try to help the spirit of the woman find peace. They searched for information online and asked the neighbors. They learned that the death of the woman in that house was a great tragedy in the area. Her name was Sarah, and her daughter had passed away from a terminal illness. Sarah was so heartbroken that she couldn't overcome her loss. Jessica felt sympathy for Sarah. She thought maybe the ghostly laughter she had heard was Sarah's choked sobbing. And the figure in the mirror was her suffering image. Jessica and Michael decided to find a way to contact Sarah's spirit and help her find peace. They contacted a friend of Michael's who had experience communicating with the other side. Michael's friend, Emily, a coincidence, was someone with a special ability to sense and communicate with spirits. After hearing Jessica and Michael's story, Emily agreed to come to their house to help. One evening, Emily arrived at Michael's house. She brought some special tools and began preparing for the ritual to contact Sarah's spirit. Emily explained that she would try to create a quiet and focused space so that Sarah could sense their presence. Emily asked Jessica and Michael to sit with her in the living room. She lit a few candles and burned incense to create a serene atmosphere. Then, she began to chant and focus her mind. In the living room, the atmosphere became suffocatingly silent. Jessica felt a distinct change in the room. It was as if another energy was present here. After a moment of concentration, Emily said softly, "I sense the presence of a sad spirit. She's nearby." Jessica and Michael looked at each other, feeling a bit of anticipation and fear. Emily continued, "Sarah, can you hear us? We want to help you find peace." For a moment, nothing happened, but then, a sudden cold gust of wind swept through the living room, extinguishing the candles on the table. Jessica shivered, feeling like someone had just touched her back. Emily said, "She's here. She's very sad and in pain." Jessica bravely asked, "Sarah, do you want to tell us anything?" After a while, a hoarse voice echoed in the silence. "My daughter." The voice was very weak and full of sorrow. Jessica and Michael looked at each other in astonishment. They couldn't believe what they had just heard. Emily said, "Sarah, we understand your pain. Your daughter has passed away. But you are not alone. We want to help you find peace and reunite with your daughter." The hoarse voice spoke again. "Help me," Emily said. "We will help you. But first, please tell us why you are so sad and in pain." The hoarse voice continued to tell of Sarah's suffering. She recounted that after her daughter passed away, she had been utterly devastated. She felt like she had lost an important part of her life. The immense pain made her unable to continue living. In a moment of weakness, Sarah had decided to end her own life in the upstairs bedroom. She had hoped that by doing so, she could reunite with her daughter in the afterlife. But things didn't go as she expected. Instead of finding peace, Sarah was trapped in her own house. She felt regret for her foolish action, but she couldn't escape. Sarah said that she always felt lonely and sad. She often cried in the night, and the ghostly laughter Jessica had heard was her choked sobbing. The figure in the mirror was her image of pain and despair. Jessica and Michael felt immense sympathy for Sarah. They understood that she desperately needed help to find peace. Emily said, "Sarah, we are here to help you. We will help you cross over and reunite with your daughter." The hoarse voice echoed, "Really?" Emily nodded. "Yes, we promise." Emily began to perform a special ritual to help Sarah cross over. She chanted and used spiritual items to create a gateway between the world of the living and the dead. During the ritual, the living room became colder than ever. The candles flickered violently, and strange noises echoed throughout the house again. Jessica felt as if many spirits were gathering here. When Emily finished the ritual, a soft white light appeared in the living room. The light enveloped the space, bringing a feeling of peace and serenity. Jessica and Michael looked at each other, feeling a surge of hope in their hearts. They believed that Sarah had finally found peace. As the white light gradually faded, Jessica and Michael felt a strange sense of relief. The cold and gloomy feeling in the house had disappeared. In its place was a warm and peaceful atmosphere. Emily said, "I sense that Sarah has gone. She has found peace and is on her way to reunite with her daughter." Jessica and Michael felt moved. They knew they had done something good. They had helped a suffering soul find release. Emily advised Jessica and Michael to take time to remember Sarah and her daughter. She said that prayers and good memories would help their spirits rest in peace. After Emily left, Jessica and Michael sat in the living room, silently reflecting on what had just happened. They felt grateful for meeting Emily and being able to help Sarah. Jessica said, "I had no idea this house had such a sad story." Michael hugged Jessica and said, "I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner." Jessica shook her head. "It's okay, honey. What matters is that Sarah is at peace now." The two decided to stay in the house for one more night. They slept soundly and didn't hear any strange noises anymore. The next morning, Jessica and Michael packed their belongings and prepared to leave the house. Before leaving, they went to the upstairs bedroom where Sarah had passed away. They stood silently for a moment to remember her. Jessica whispered, Goodbye, Sarah. May you and your daughter be happy in the afterlife." As they stepped out of the house, Jessica felt a sense of relief and serenity. She knew that Sarah's ghost would no longer haunt this house. After the strange events at Michael's house, Jessica had a completely different perspective on the spiritual world. She no longer dismissed ghost stories. She knew there were things that science couldn't explain. The relationship between Jessica and Michael also became stronger. They had gone through something very special together, and it had bonded them closer. However, Jessica still felt a bit scared whenever she thought about what had happened. She no longer dared to be alone in old and dark houses. Michael was always by Jessica's side, comforting and encouraging her. He understood that she needed time to overcome the haunting memories of the past. Sometime later, Michael got a new job in another city. He asked Jessica if she wanted to move in with him. Jessica agreed. She wanted to start a new life in a place where she no longer had to fear the ghosts of the past. They moved to a new apartment. Bright and modern, Jessica felt comfortable and safe here. She began to focus on her work and personal interests. But sometimes, on quiet late nights, Jessica still heard the faint echo of ghostly laughter somewhere. She knew that the memories of Michael's old house would never completely disappear. However, Jessica was no longer afraid. She knew that Sarah had found peace, and the laughter she heard now was just a lingering echo of the past. She learned to accept it and live with it. Jessica's story is a reminder that there are many mysteries in the world around us that we may not fully understand. Sometimes, strange and terrifying things can happen in our everyday lives. Always trust your sixth sense. If you feel that something is wrong, be careful and vigilant. Never ignore unusual signs, as they may be warnings of potential dangers. If you or someone you know is experiencing supernatural phenomena, don't hesitate to seek help from experienced professionals. Sometimes, a little support can help us overcome difficulties and find peace. And most importantly, always maintain an optimistic spirit and courage. Darkness can be scary, but light can always prevail. If you enjoyed these true horror stories, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on the channel to follow our latest videos. We will bring you more terrifying and haunting stories. Thank you for listening.